Happy weekend stream. Hi, hello, and welcome everybody. Hope everyone is having a fantastic day so far. Unfortunately, we are getting closer and closer to the start of a new week, which means Monday blues are ahead of us. Work will be back in full swing. But for now, we are enjoying the weekend, having a great time. Hopefully, everyone is doing well. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you guys might be. So today is going to be a fun one. We always do this after a major Star Rail story release. It's usually just a stream where we just get to talk. We just get to chat. We just get to kind of lay back, have a good time, discuss anything that's on top of our minds relevant to the story, go back, take a look at a couple of scenes, discuss what we liked, what we didn't like. Sometimes, if there's a couple of flaws within the story, but for the most part, it's a really chill stream. We usually go for an hour or 2 hours or somewhere between there. So, but yeah, weekend has been super nice for me so far. It's been the first weekend in a while where I didn't have any hard plans. Like I didn't have anything like really necessary to do. I did think that maybe something could have come up. I was like, oh, okay, maybe there's gonna be this birthday celebration or not. But for the most part, I haven't done anything. Don't plan on doing anything, and that's the way I like it. So, but yeah, the plan of attack for today is we're gonna start with probably if anyone comes to the chat, obviously we'll discuss with them. But if it's just gonna be me today, probably start with the video, and then we'll kind of go into some theories and but yeah, we'll start with the video, go through, talk about the things that like actually stood out to me. Then from there, we'll talk about the things that I somewhat disliked about this patch, which there were some. And then we'll go into the storytelling aspects of it, and then we'll talk about probably any theories um or main kind of lore reveals that happen at the very end of the patch for the most part. So yeah, for the most part though, I don't want to like structure this too much. Like back when I started to do these type of streams initially, well, if you're like a real like lore junkie of the Gulio channel, you know that we did these initially for the Legend of Naita Boundless Trails playthrough that we did pretty much from the very beginning of this channel's inception. We would do a story recap after every chapter of the game, and for the most part every stream that we did was a chapter, so we were pretty much doing a recap slash discussion for every single stream that we did of Naita. And what we did back then, and what we kind of started to do in Star Rail once we started to do Star Rail on the channel, was we were mostly just recapping. We would just kind of go through and we would just talk about what happened in the story from start to finish. And that was fun, but it was also a bit dry in my opinion, because all I was doing was just talking through what I experienced in different ways. But using words but communicating the same thing. And eventually I realized, maybe I don't want this to be so structured. Maybe I want this to be a bit more flexible. And then I just kind of started talking one day instead of going through like the video of the story quest, and found that I liked that a bit better, and then eventually started to take a bit more form as we did more of it. So but yeah, pretty inflexible. And if there's no one that comes into chat, then I just kind of ramble. I just kind of talk about what I want to talk about, and that's pretty fun too. So, but yeah, in terms of housekeeping items, so we're pretty much done with 4.1 with Star Rail, which means that the channel really has nothing else to do for Star Rail unless we just randomly decide to summon on Ashvale out of nowhere, which I can tell you already, there is no plan for that. And I did say before that we are getting close to the point to where we will start finally doing other things in between Star Rail, mainly Zenless Zone Zero. The thing is, I forgot completely that between 4.1 and 4.2, there's only 4 weeks of downtime between both story, or not both story, both versions of the game. And that kind of put a wrench into my plan. So I will I will be honest, and I will say the full truth. I am fully prepared to bring the channel back to its normal cadence, to its normal kind of schedule that we had last year, where we would be doing Star Rail, and in between Star Rail, we would be doing Zenless Zone Zero, and then obviously once we catch up to Zenless Zone Zero, we'll do something else. Right now, I think I'm planning on doing Expedition 33. So I am fully prepared to start up that schedule again. My life is stable, I'm in good health, and I have no reason why I can't do that. The thing is, starting it now with only 3 weeks of downtime between 4.1 and 4.2 kind of feels a bit strange. Like, would be difficult to get some momentum in the other game or whatever else we're doing with 4.2 so close and on the horizon. So I'm still thinking about whether or not I want to kind of bring back, like I said, the normal cadence of the channel now or after 4.2, because 4.2 is going to be big, right? That's going to be the anniversary. It's going to be like, oh shit, we're getting right into it. There's going to be a whole bunch of, there's probably going to be a new anniversary trailer. There's going to be multiple trailers for Silver Wolf 999. There's going to be multiple trailers for Evanesia. There's going to be obviously the story quest that we're going to have to do. So there's going to be a lot, right? And so I think what would happen was we would basically only get like 5 to 6 streams of Zenless Zone Zero, and then immediately, bam, back to Star Rail. And that's not really a good way, I think, to kind of come back to Zenless or to anything else that we're doing on the channel. So, long story short, basically, in my mind, I'm still considering whether or not I want to start up, the normal cadence that we had last year of the channel now or after 4.2. We'll see what I decide. There's still the chance that, I feel, okay, yeah, I feel pretty good about where I'm at right now. Let's go ahead. Start streaming like 3 times as more as I have been. But so just so be patient, right? So I'm sorry that it's taken so long to get back to the point to where we're streaming pretty consistently. The second housekeeping item is something that I've completely procrastinated. A lot of you have posted comments on my YouTube VODs, and I have not responded to them. I am so sorry. I will try to respond to them as quickly as I can. Once my procrastinating ass finally stops. But don't. I see all your comments. I read all of them, including the bad ones, the negative ones, the trolley ones. The trolley ones I won't respond to. I'll respond to the criticisms, like any valid criticism of what I'm doing here on the channel. I will respond to because I appreciate the criticism. Any trolley comments, no, you're not gonna get a response. But yeah, I'll respond as soon as I can get my procrastinating ass up in gear and stop being such a slothful idiot. So. But those are the 2 things I really wanted to talk about. In terms of when the next stream will be, like I've said for the past however many weeks, I don't know. It's going to really depend on whenever Star Rail releases new content or whenever, um, whenever we decide to kind of start up Zenless Zone Zero again, which I want to. Don't get me wrong. I've been itching to start playing Zenless again. Not that I haven't been playing Zenless. I play Zenless every single day. A lot more than you guys probably think. I want to play Wi-Fi. I want to play through season 2. There's just this like massive story. Like I could just play through all of season 2 if I wanted to right now, and I've had to like hold off because of the fact that I want to do it on stream. So yeah. But yeah, so those are the main things I wanted to talk about. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. We're gonna go to our classic CG Inferno vid and move the overlay. So I was looking at this before the stream because there was a couple of things I wanted to remind myself on, mainly going back to the start, the exact like conversations of what was happening with the Daybreak Squad or the Daybreak Squadron, whatever you want to call them, because it was one of the main things. So let's go ahead and start with the negative, right? Now that we're kind of broaching this subject. A lot of people have obviously criticized Star Rail for this, and I wouldn't say I want to harp on it too much because I don't necessarily think it was all that negative, but it's certainly something that I felt needed to be called out. I don't think the Daybreak Squadron was utilized all that well. Now, there were some things about the Daybreak Squadron that I did like, and also let's put a proper visual in front of it, please, please and thank you. No, that's Kuchiba and Ashvale. That's Pearl, and then that's Himiko. That's Mother. Here we go. Perfect, right there. So obviously we've got what was it? Blaze Weaver, Dawn Lance, Azure Wing, and then our everyone's fan favorite, the only one that's still fucking alive, um, Cinderborn, or as we know him by his real name, Magnus. The other three got real names as well. Like I think one's called Wilhelm. I forgot the other two, but they don't matter as much, right? I actually don't think these characters and what they were meant to play, the role that they were meant to play within the story, was all that bad. I think I'm not the biggest like I'm not the biggest hater, or like hater's a bad word for it, but a lot of people historically speaking when it comes to Hoyoverse stories, not just in Star Rail but Genshin and Zenless, and less so in Zenless, I've seen, but in Genshin I used to see it a lot back in the early days, especially with Tepe, and in Star Rail I've seen it a bit as well. I'm not the biggest hater when it comes to like Star Rail using NPCs to drive the plot forward, right? A classic example in Star Rail that was criticized quite a bit was kindness in Amphorius, right? With the Council of Elders, and then the Daybreak Squadron is another good example of this. A lot of people think that okay, if you're gonna have a role in the story that's gonna drive plot events forward, right? You need the plot to obviously proceed. You needed to move, and the best way to drive a plot forward is using your characters. Right? Characters take action. That action has consequences, cause and effect. The plot moves forward. Right? And people say that it should be the playable characters or summonable characters, right? That should have the main role of doing this, right? So a lot of people have been frustrated in times past, like I said, in Genshin and Star Rail and Zenless, like I said, it's a bit less, but Zenless handles their NPCs really well, in my opinion. With non-playable characters like the Daybreak Squadron, like Blaze Weaver, and like Cinderborn or our boy Magnus, taking that role away from other playable characters. Why weren't, for example, it's either take the role of the story that the Daybreak Squad was supposed to play and give it to another playable character. Like I don't know who it could be. It's not going to be Ashvale, right? Because Ashvale is doing his own thing, but someone else. Or you make the NPCs playable. You make them like a 4-star character or something. Who knows, right? Um, if I had to choose between the two, I would prefer the latter. I would prefer, taking characters that, you might not have planned as playable and then making them playable, right? I think that like as a 4-star character, who knows? The reason Hoyoverse does this, by the way, is because the gotcha community is feral. They are insane, and I don't want to like be up here on my high horse like, oh yeah, the gotcha community, like I'm not part of it, like I'm a part of the gotcha community, right? But there are some very feral individual people in the gotcha community that will take extreme action, sometimes harmful action, sometimes illegal action against Hoyoverse, the company, but more importantly, employees of the company, sometimes developers, script writers, most of the time, voice actors. These unfortunate individuals in this gotcha community will go after innocent people for the way the character is portrayed in the game or in the story. Um, and if you take a character and you vilify them, like a playable character, and you vilify that playable character, these irrational people will then go attack, the company, or like I said, the aforementioned employees of the company unfairly, and that is harmful, right? That is not the type of community and environment that you want to build around your game. It's also the same story behind shipping, right? And why you don't see pretty much any romance and any large scale gotcha game these days, right? Because you have had romance before in Hoyoverse. Like when you go back to Honkai Impact the Third, you see stuff like Kiana and May, right? And they used to be a bit more flexible when it came to romance. JD, how's it going, man? Happy weekend, happy Sunday, JD. Hope all is well with you, my friend. Thanks for hopping in here. I'm just kind of rambling about um, the gotcha community for a bit. We're talking about the Daybreak Squadron and the role that they played within the story and how NPCs play into Hoyoverse script writing and story development in general. Conversation has kind of transitioned a little bit though. But yeah, so you know these unfortunate, irrational individuals within the gotcha community, they're very sensitive about the way their character is portrayed. So like if you ship them with another character that they don't like, they will go ballistic. If you ship them with a character that is maybe of the same gender or sex of that character that they like, they will go ballistic, right? They will basically, you know, attack Hoyoverse or people working under Hoyoverse if their character, within a romantic perspective, is presented in a way that they did not like. But long story short, a big reason why Hoyoverse will sometimes use NPCs to drive the plot forward for a very specific role is because that role within the story is potentially going to portray is potentially going to be portrayed as negative or in a way that they think might invite criticism, or not necessarily criticism, but negative reaction. And so that's why I think they break Squadron, right? They're not exactly a shining example of heroism within the 4.1 story. And so think about it, right? If they decided to put Ashvale in this role, or Pearl in this role, or Silverwolf in this role, or Blade in this role, fans of those characters might not like that. And unfortunately, nowadays, we can't control our emotions based on what we get from the internet, and they're going to go ballistic, right? So I think Hoyoverse said, for this specific role in the story, best we leave it to an NPC, because that way, we can at least guarantee ourselves a neutral playing ground. If people get upset about the Daybreak Squadron characters and the way they're portrayed, they're NPCs, doesn't matter. But instead, what that happens is like the role of the Daybreak Squadron in the story is very muted because they're NPCs, right? I mean, they're not necessarily characters that we can really get behind that much because they're not playable. We know that they're not necessarily going to be consistent within the story because they're NPCs. And so, but what I think one thing that I don't like about the Daybreak Squadron, and something that I've brought up before, only once though, is, let's find her. She's gonna be something. I think she was ahead, right? I think for every NPC that they use in the story consistently and has impact, come on, they need to give them a Kochiba level design. I I am I am so glad they've really invested effort into this in Plan Arcadia, because it's not just Kuchiba now. Like think about Full Wish, right? Full Wish has a pretty unique design for an NPC, and Kuchiba does as well. And we've had this before, right? We've had this of like Siaban and Penacony, and who else? I'm forgetting, like Kroteros and Amphorius, like these NPCs that have like these special, molded designs, and for that reason, we can kind of get behind them a bit more, even if they're not going to be playable. Now, what happens then instead is people will start to want these NPCs to become playable, but I digress. So, JD, I was so surprised that they were the Herald of Death. So was I. That said, I don't think the Herald of Death plotline is over. I think it's still going to be brought up, JD. So I don't but yeah, I was surprised that they decided to go with the Daybreak Squadron as the Herald of Death in 4.1. Actually, I was a bit disappointed that they were, in all honesty. I was the Herald of Death to me was probably the most interesting plot line that they introduced in 4.1, not 4.1 and 4.0, and for it to be just like Power Rangers, like I was like, I don't know about that one. Anywho, so my main criticism of 4.1 is the fact that the Daybreak Squadron I think were fine, but I think they should have been presented a bit more powerfully or a bit more emotionally. They did a good job with Magnus, like Cinderborn, and obviously he's like the main one of the four, so like makes sense, right? But I do we ever get to see Don Lance's face, like ever? Like I don't think she ever takes off her helmet, and we get to see Blaze Weaver and Azure Wing's face, I think, at some point, but they're just regular NPC models, man. Like I would have preferred for them to have like dedicated NPC models, maybe a bit more, maybe make their like costume designs not as bland, and just put more effort into making them a good presentable antagonist. Now, of course, they're not the mastermind behind this. They're they're victims of the real mastermind, Full Wish, or whoever's manipulating Full Wish, or whether it's the abundance or not. But the way the Daybreak Squadron is presented is weak, in my opinion. It's not enough. It doesn't feel like it's emotionally resonant. And it's like for example, when we got to the boss fight, like against the pom pom mech, I was like, okay, like I guess this is happening. The cutscene was cool. I will say that the cutscene was dope, but ultimately there's very little, I think, consequence because none of us cared about these characters aside from Cinderborn. Cinderborn's the goat. Love Magnus. But like the I feel like the moment where Ashvale kills the other three Daybreak Squadron could have been so much more impactful because very rarely does a playable character in Star Rail straight up commit murder, just straight up kill another character. And Ashvale just kills three of them, just like that, without much hesitation. And I feel like if Blaze Weaver, Azure Wing, and Dawnlance had been presented more effectively leading up to that moment, it could have hit that much harder. So JD, but I didn't understand if they were all wearing the octopus mask. I don't think we ever get to see the mask of that they're wearing, right? We don't even necessarily get confirmation of who like the like dedicated supplicant is because it's said that all of them were supplicants. So that's interesting because we were told originally that there were like what, like 8 supplicants, right? Hold on. I feel like that's an important piece of information. Phantasmoon Games, how many supplicants? I misspelled it. I can't spell. Phantasmoon Games supplicants. 8 supplicants. You're right. So if you have 3 from, or if you have 4 from this one squadron, doesn't really add up. So yeah, definitely some writing inconsistency with the Daybreak Squadron. I didn't feel that they were necessarily effective antagonists. But I think for what they were supposed to do, the role that they were supposed to play within the story, they did their job. They drove the plot forward, and even though we didn't care about the characters, I cared about the other characters that were involved in the plot, like Evanesia or Ashvale being the main one of this story arc, Himiko, etc. So, and they did a good job with Cinderborn. They did a good job with Magnus. I cared about him. I'm glad that he didn't die. And seeing him so traumatized, so emotionally distraught by the death of his companions, that was effective. I liked that. I thought that was really good. But ultimately, they could have done a better job with the other 3. I think Blaze Weaver was better than the other 2 because he was like the leader, right? So just I think a little bit more screen time or maybe introduce them in 4.0 would have been better. So, but yeah. Also, it's hilarious. I think people were thinking Evanesia was a child of Anasrava when it turns out to be an abundance abomination. Well, I never really thought Evanesia was a child of Anasrava, but I mean, like, she has pink hair, and all the all the known children of Anasrava, you know, Cyrene and March, had pink hair. So like, I can't necessarily fault them for it. The thing is, the way Stavriel writes their story versions, they're very siloed, and it's one of the things I don't necessarily like about gotcha stories, or at the very least the way Hoyoverse does them, because some other gotcha stories make a bit more sense with the way they do it. But Hoyoverse will model their story and the way the story progresses around the character that was released recently, right? Like, okay, why did Ashvale get such a prominent role in 4.1? Well, because he was released, right? Okay, why did Cyrene get such a prominent role in 3.7? Because she was released, right? Makes sense. We all know this, right? But what happens is you get this schedule, right? Where you have to write your story in a way that accommodates an external factor, right? And that is ultimately very difficult to do seamlessly because normally a plot, a story, is supposed to develop naturally through the progression and the actions of your main cast, right? And this is why I think the Star Rail story has such an advantage over other gotcha games that follow a similar formula because Star Rail has a main cast. Star Rail has the Astral Express. Hell, Star Rail even has like a secondary main cast with the Stellaron Hunters. And that gives you such an advantage in a gacha based story because you can always rely on the fact that you will have characters that you can go back to, and those characters can drive the plot forward and for it to feel more natural than, oh, all of a sudden, Asheville gets focused. All of a sudden, Pearl is going to get focused next patch. All of a sudden, now it's Sparksy's turn. You know what I'm saying? Because they were releasing at that time. And but you know what? To me, to me, this might be biased, but to me, who do you think, JD, if you're still here, is my favorite character so far in Planar Arcadia? Who do you think I feel is being the best written objectively, like from an objective perspective, even though all story, judgment is subjective, but it's very easy to pick who I think is the best player, the best character so far in Planar Arcadia, who has been the most emotionally compelling, the most emotionally resonant. Not well, Sparksy's not Sparkle is would be the choice. It's Himiko. It has to be Himiko. It can't be anyone else. It's Himiko pretty easily. Though I think Evanesia is making a good case for it. Evanesia has been super good so far, and she's been a pretty big part of both 4.1 and 4.0, right? But it's Himiko because Himiko has, we've built a relationship with her. She's involved in the main plot of Planet Arcadia, but also because she is supposed to push the plot forward because she is a main cast member, right? Like whenever we get Himiko focus, it feels natural because we have an understanding of her personality. They don't need to force it. They don't need to like write the story around Himiko. Instead, Himiko's natural character arc takes form within the story, and then the story begins to drive forward because of it. Now, you're always going to get a little bit of like, oh, okay, obviously they're gonna release the Himiko SP in later down the line in Planar Arcadia, so they're trying to build her up as the main push. But I mean, think about Silverwolf. Silverwolf 999 is the anniversary character for Planar Arcadia. She's going to be a massive focus in 4.2, but we've hardly gotten anything of her in Planar Arcadia. Hardly at all. Like her best moment so far in Planar Arcadia was a Blade Don Hung moment. It's like her like being funny with Blade and Don Hung in 4.1. So that's my point, is the fact that um it's really difficult to write a seamless story. Not a great story, because you can, the way that Hoyoverse writes their story, like to sell their characters, they still do it really well. And but to write a more like naturally progressing story is really difficult with this formula. So JD, oh, I was disappointed when they leave the cliffhanger of Himiko's death for the dad saying, nah, it was a joke. Yeah, see, JD, I actually agree. Thank God that they then made up for it by writing their relationship super well. Like, I think the cliffhanger of Himiko's death was definitely, I don't think, great writing. I think if you're gonna leave that type of a cliffhanger and then kind of like step back, don't know if that's necessarily great writing, story writing. Now, obviously, it could still be a cliffhanger or like a big reveal in the future, right? We still don't have confirmation on whether or not Ryusuke is actually Himiko's dad, whether or not Himiko's quote unquote death that they teased is just something they threw away. This could be a red herring. Himiko could still be quote unquote dead. Ryusuke could still be some other being that is dangerous or something. Like there's still a lot of mystery behind it, right? There's they could be just trying to get our attention elsewhere. But yeah, I don't think it was great. But then they're like, okay, yeah, we're gonna cheat you out of like a big reveal or like story tension behind Himiko's quote unquote death. But here's fantastic father daughter tension character writing instead. We're gonna develop this dynamic. We're gonna make it a real thing. And I was like, okay, I'll take that trade off. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would have preferred to have both. I would have liked to have both fantastic, character dynamic development between Himiko and Ryusuke and a good answer to the cliffhanger from 4.0, but I'll take it. I'll take what I can get. I'll take what I can get. So, but yeah, I think so far in Planet Arcadia, Himiko and Evanescent for me have been my favorite so far. Seki on YouTube. Yo, what's up, man? Seki, it's been a while, my friend. Hope you're doing well. I'm sorry that I didn't get to your chat in time because I accidentally closed it, and YouTube chat for me is a bit difficult to see. But good to see you, Seki. Hope you're still there. In my opinion, it was better this way. Himiko being dead is too predictable at this point. My whole point is if you're going to make it predictable or you're not going to follow up on it, don't do it in the first place, right? Don't write yourself into a hole. Just if you aren't going to, if you're going to introduce some type of idea within the story, don't abandon it. That's inconsistent character writing, and I hate inconsistent story writing and character writing more than I like bad writing, because inconsistent writing takes me out of the vibe and the immersion of the story. With bad writing, at least I can laugh at it. With inconsistent writing, it just breaks the immersion for me. But I wasn't necessarily opposed to Himiko being dead decision. I just think they needed to develop the idea, and they could still develop the idea later down the line. But I feel like they've really lost momentum with it, and I just don't think it would be as interesting. JD, if I understand correctly, Graphia was the name of the ancestor, and the whole family's last name is Murata, right? Yes. So Graphia was so in all likelihood, the way they presented it, Graphia, like the founder of the family, their name or her name, it was confirmed that Graphia was a woman. Graphia's name was Graphia Murata. That was probably her full name. And then it was passed down, down the line. But also, it was left a bit ambiguous. It was left a bit vague. They also it was also like talked about how potentially Graphia was just kind of not necessarily a bloodline, but a legacy, in that there was like different bloodlines within the Graphia family, or who knows. But at the very least, we know that Himiko is a descendant of Graphia. We know that for a fact. It's just like was Himiko's great 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 grandfather? Do they have a different last name? Who knows? Second, I think they are cooking something more deep with the whole curse and Himiko being cured in a way that wasn't really explained. I agree. I agree. I think Himiko's writing is still being kind of like hidden in a way. Like whatever they're cooking with her, I think they're definitely like they're trying to surprise us, right? They're trying to do a plot twist, and they're trying to distract our attention elsewhere, right? I fully believe oh, Himiko is dead and Ryusuke was just a joke, right? I think that's a red herring. I think there's definitely something going on with that. And if there isn't, then that's just, like I said, inconsistent writing. So yippee. Um I actually like the theory that the Herald of Death is Himiko. I don't know if you guys have seen that theory. Um, but that supposedly there's a character in Star Rail lore. I forgot their name, but also a woman who um who basically was underneath a curse and like sacrificed other people in order to cure her curse. So like there's a theory going around that Himiko is actually the herald of death unknowingly or potentially knowingly, but probably unknowingly, and that back 15 years ago that Himiko was actually the Herald of Death, and the reason why the Herald of Death did everything that they did was because that was the way to break the curse, or for some other result, or maybe that was the way to win the Phantasm Moon games, and then they used the Phantasm Moon games wish to break the curse. You know, I think that theory is potentially interesting. That said, I don't really see it being likely, because if they want to make Himiko the Herald of Death, I think they need to make Himiko somewhat antagonistic for a little bit. Obviously, not permanently, but for a little bit. And I just don't ever see them making an Astral Express member antagonistic in any way. Like even with Evernight, Evernight was a different personality. Like that wasn't March. Like March was like locked away, almost like imprisoned. Like Evernight is a different entity altogether from March. So that wasn't technically March being an antagonist. So of course, a red herring for the people with red hair. Oh, true. Knock on wood. Very true. Pun intended. Seki, she said it was thanks to the games, but her own dialogue makes it seem like she didn't win. So how does she get cured? Who knows? Oh, I need to sneeze. Hold on. I fucking hate it when you have to sneeze and then you like prepare to sneeze, but because you're consciously thinking about sneezing, you don't sneeze. And then you just sneeze later. Like it's gonna happen. So anywho. No, yeah, I think I mean the Herald of Death was executed. Pearl confirmed there's a name and a body, so I think it will be weird if Himiko turned out to be it. Yes, but obviously the name Marcus Antali. Um it could, yeah, that's the thing. Okay, so I'll say it right now. I'm not the big I just think they've really not handled the Herald of Death storyline well. I I don't think making the Herald of Death Marcus on Tali and like confirming that he was executed was necessarily a bad story decision. But what you've done is you've taken the most interesting storyline of 4.0 and you've abandoned it. Right? There's really nowhere they can go with the Herald of Death storyline at this point. Unless they want to do some like, oh, but really it wasn't Marcus, or it was Marcus, but he went by a different name and it was actually Ryusuke and some. What I'm trying to say is, if they want to make the Herald of Death storyline interesting still, they're gonna have to come up with some like voodoo magic story writing shit that is gonna be not good. It's gonna be inconsistent and out of nowhere. Um, so we'll see what happens. I mean, the big thing, right, is we still don't have an explanation for the Herald of Death scene that we got in 4.0 at the school. Like, obviously, we know that the Herald of Death that had killed the syndicate in Dovebrook District, that was the Daybreak Squadron. We got the confirmation on that. But for the Herald of Death scene of 4.0, like, was that present day? Probably not. That was probably just a flashback. But who knows what they could do with it. Seki, well, to be fair, the information comes from the IPC, and Pearl also said that all the bloggers from the Herald of Death were taken from an IPC member, so who knows? Yeah, that's what I'm saying, though. Like, if they decide to go like, oh, the Herald of Death wasn't Marcus Antali, it was actually Himiko, or was actually Ryusuke, or was actually, someone else that, but Marcus Antali went by a different name and the IPC lied. The IPC, like, isn't that some bullshit? Like, isn't that like, oh, the IPC just lied and big reveal, plot twist, like that? To me, that isn't good writing. So maybe the IPC member is the real Herald of Death and just framed Marcus. That actually isn't bad. I actually wouldn't mind that. That's actually a pretty. If they want to continue with the Herald of Death storyline, that actually wouldn't be horrible. JD, also, I think Evernight was not really bad. She just didn't know how to act properly. Yeah, I agree. The thing is, she's still an antagonist, right? She's not a villain. She's an antagonist. Those are two different things. But yeah, I think Evernight is not evil. She just is. She is just extreme in some ways. And whenever you are an extreme type of person, whenever you act, you're probably going to antagonize a large group of people because most people don't behave in extremes. And so, yeah, she was like, you know what? In order to protect March, which is like my main goal, I'm going to doom the entire world of Amphorius, and I don't care. And then March was like, hey, about that, we shouldn't doom entire worlds for the sake of a single person. And then Evernight eventually was like, oh, yeah, my bad. And so, obviously, incredibly simplified and sarcastic way to describe Evernight. But ultimately, like, what makes Evernight a good antagonist is the fact that she's not evil, the fact that she is just a person of extremity, and natural her natural beliefs and ideals clash with the ideals and beliefs of the Astral Express, including March. JD Ashvale being La Mancha and the leader of the Galaxy Ranger is cool, but now I wonder if he's an emanator of the hunt, bro. Okay, so let's get the negative out of the way because I want to talk about Ashvale. So I didn't necessarily fully like the Daybreak Squadron. I thought they were fine for what they needed to do. Would have liked a bit more time invested into the other three, Azure Wing, Blaze Weaver, and Dawn Lance. Would have liked a bit more screen time for them to make me care about them before they fucking died. So that was criticism number 1 of 4.1 for me. Criticism number 2, we just talked about it. I'm not a big fan of the way they handled the Herald of Death storyline because I think the Herald of Death was probably the most interesting storyline that they had from 4.0. And it kind of feels like it's pretty much conclusive at this point. And if they decide to bring it back, they're going to need to do some voodoo character writing or voodoo story writing. And I don't know how they're going to do it to make it believable. So those are my main true criticisms of 4.1. Let's talk about Ashvale because I think Ashvale was fucking awesome. Almost there. Here we go. But let me catch up to Joseki here really quick. Ashvale is not an emanator of the hunt, or at least it hasn't been confirmed yet. I am more curious about the thing that he has on his arm. So am I. Also, yes, Ashvale is not an emanator of the hunt. He could be. He is not confirmed yet. So obviously, to be confirmed. Here's a couple of key things to know about Ashvale. He's not necessarily acting as a Galaxy Ranger anymore. We know that he is, considered the leader of the Galaxy Rangers, but as he said in the story, a lot of people want him dead, and he's just trying to chill. He's basically he wants to go off grid. That's why he's in Penarcadia, sleeping in the fridge, which I still don't know why they decided to, but it's funny. So technically, we don't necessarily know if he's even a past rider of the hunt anymore. He could still be, right? Because the Galaxy Rangers are all past riders of the hunt. But we don't necessarily know if he's still acting as a Galaxy Ranger. He's still considered as the leader of the Galaxy Rangers, clearly, because he is La Mancha, and La Mancha is still considered as the Galaxy Rangers head honcho. But, the way Ashvale presented himself didn't seem like he was all too keen on continuing that leadership. Like, he's not an active leader. He's a leader that has disappeared from society and is doing his best to lay low. So, who knows if he's even a past rider of the hunt? What makes that more interesting is whatever the fuck is in his arm. Because whatever is in his arm is clearly not the power of the hunt. Because the power of the hunt is portrayed as more elegant. It is number one, the color scheme in general is like, white with green and silver and like the colors of the Xianzhou, right? The colors of lawn. Whereas, Ashvale's arm is dark red, purple, like, these almost evil colors that very clearly are not supposed to be the power of the hunt. So what power is it? Well, could be, we're on the planet of elation. Is it the power of aha? But that said, the power of elation also hasn't necessarily been presented the way Ashvale's arm power is presented. So it's probably something else, right? Then you start getting into like, okay, is it the power of, there we go, JD. What a lot of people think, it's the power of veracity, the power of the eon of veracity or Boros, like, because the veracity is very similar to the, what was it called, the torn fat, the torn pearl, the torn scroll. There we go. The torn scroll and the power in Ashvale's arm, which resonates with the torn scroll, very much looks like the veracity. But I feel like a lot of people aren't necessarily thinking about the implications of that. Like the veracity, like that's a path that we haven't gotten any insight in up until this point in the story. Like, how is that going to play into all this? Like, where like we've gotten like many paths in the story of Star Rail, right? There's obviously the main paths, right? You've got the Trailblazers, the Destruction, the Harmony, the Nihility, the Remembrance, right? The erudition, right? The popular paths, right? Like they're the popular group in high school. Everyone knows those paths. They're always going to be relevant in the story. But then you've also got a couple of other paths. The Hunt. I can't believe I forgot about the Hunt. Then you've got also a couple of other, the Abundance. You've got a couple of other paths that have been kind of teased within the Star Rail story at certain points. Paths that aren't necessarily, the main focus of the story, but are doing things behind the scenes, right? There's stuff like the propagation, right? With like the stuff with like the God Slayer protocol that Locha and Jingliu are looking into. There's the power that Firefly has is supposedly the power of propagation. There's a swarm and everything, right? You've got like the path of the equilibrium, right? The path of equilibrium, always there, always, hey, how's it going, guys? You've got the path of fuck me, what's it called? Mythos. What is the path Mythos is in charge of? Path of Enigmata, right? Like these like smaller, not necessarily, okay, not smaller, but like these paths that have had a smaller presence within the Star Rail story. But then you've got the veracity, and the veracity is basically nothing. Like, we've gotten very little about the veracity in the Star Rail story, and now all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it could be having a major story role in Planet Arcadia. So I think that's super interesting. Like, what are they going to do with the veracity? It's like, if Ashvale's arm is even the veracity, how did he even get the power? Is he a Pathstrider of the veracity? Is he an Emanator of the veracity? And why is he like resonating with the torn scroll in Planet Arcadia? Why does the power of veracity resonate with that? So, second, I think Ashvale is more akin to what Jingran is, some kind of semi-emanator based on his chant before releasing his power. He mentioned Skybow, which is another title of Lan, the Hunt. Oh, that is true, actually. He didn't mention the Skybow. Wait, hold on. Let's go take a look at his chant. Completely forgot about that. Good call, Seki. Here we go. No, it's after this. It's like right here. I offer my blood to consume this vendetta. I offer my heart to shoot down this injustice. I, lead Hunter La Mancha, call upon you in the name of the Star Hunt Oath. Star Hunt Oath? O Skybow, gaze upon this broken-legged wolf. Okay, so maybe his power is just a hunt. But like, that would be so weird. The hunt has never been presented the way his power is presented. JD, especially considering Ouroboros is supposed to be death. Well, the inherent path of veracity isn't death, right? But it certainly leads to a ton of death. That's for damn sure. Considering the size of Ouroboros, the power that it has, and if they were to pursue its path, they are just devouring everything. Also, another thing is the power Ashvale has was gifted to him by Starseer, EC, the pacificator from the Astral Express. Yes. The thing is, the Astral Express is fluid, flexible in everything that they do. Like the most flexible. Flexible is not the word I'm looking for, but maybe it is. The Trailblaze is one of the few paths in Star Rail that offers its pathstriders a degree of autonomy, in my opinion. Because many other paths in Star Rail, this is what makes Star Rail so interesting and its lore, is that it's very rigid, right? If you are a Pathstrider, especially a powerful one, like an Emanator of some kind, very rarely do your can you act in a way where your beliefs and ideals are contrasting your own path. That's what makes characters like Phynon and Akron really interesting, right? Because Akron and Phynon are these incredibly powerful past riders of their paths, right? The destruction and the nihility. Yet, despite that, their beliefs and values seemingly go against the like core tenets of their own path. Yet, still, their behaviors, the way they act, and the way they lead their life does align with the behaviors and the lives of the other past riders of their own path. So there is contrasting nature, right? But my point is, IC or EC, I forget the way it's pronounced. Yes, they were a past navigator of the Astral Express, but just because they were connected to the Express doesn't mean that they couldn't also be connected to the Veracity or any other path to an extreme extent, right? I mean, just look at Sunday, right? Sunday is, by all accounts, an official member of the Astral Express. Not quite there yet, but he's probably going to be eventually, right? But he's not a past rider of the Trailways. At this current moment in time, he is a past rider of the Harmony. So it just kind of goes to show that the Astral Express, very flexible path. They're like more versatile. Versatile is the word I'm looking for, or versatile. So, JD, I'm so confused about how people can be emanators of certain paths if eons are dead. I thought the power of emanators came directly from the eon. From my understanding, an emanator is simply an individual that an eon has given permission to siphon power from the path, not necessarily the eon themselves. So basically, I think it's possible for an emanator to have been birthed, right? An eon has basically knighted an emanator, like, oh, Sir Akron of the Nihility, you know what? And once you become an emanator, you've received permission to siphon power from the path, right? So if the eon then dies, it's not necessarily that permission has been revoked. The permission was given. So they can remain an emanator in that way. That's my understanding of it. If anyone wishes to correct me, please do, because I will say this right now. My understanding of Star Rail lore and Star Rail, like, deep details of Star Rail has never been more rusty. Bro, back in Amphorius, I was like, yeah, bro, I'm on top of this shit. Especially in Penacony. Like, Penacony and Amphorius, I would absolutely consider myself like a somewhat decent subject matter expert in like Star Rail lore and understanding, right? Now, bro, do not trust anything I say that comes from my mouth. I need to catch up on my Star Rail lore. I need to study. Because I've the other day I forgot about something and I was like, God damn. Like, I can't believe I forgot about that shit. I forgot what it was. I'll have to recall. Second, we haven't met an emanator from a dead eon so far, so we don't know that yet. But isn't it implied that that paths continue to exist even after an emanator dies? Like, for example, even if we met an emanator from the propagation, it would still make sense because Tazaroth isn't dead, is sealed if I remember. Tazaroth is sealed, yes, they're not fully dead. So yeah, it's vague. Just like many things in Star Rail are vague. Have you guys noticed that Star Rail very, very rarely ever like hard confirms something? It's because its writing is very dynamic. Like, Shaoji is a very dynamic writer. But if you're going to write dynamically, best to keep your lore and the details surrounding your world building as vague as possible. Because if you hard confirm something, that restricts you till the end of time, till your story is over, right? Or, you can then walk it back, what we call a, what's it called? When you when you take something that was previously established in a story and you basically erase it. Fuck me. It's the thing that a lot of people call the 3.7 in Pentaconi with like the new Firefly stuff. But what I'm trying to say is if you do that, that's just inconsistent writing. And that's like I said, I dislike inconsistent writing more than bad writing. I think it's not good. So Shaoji purposely keeps a lot of his writing and world building as vague as possible because if he hard confirms something, then that restricts him from writing some as dynamically as he does. It's smart. It makes the world building worse, that's for sure, but it allows you to do some crazy shit within your story, so it's fine. Second, the thing is, eons can die, but yes, the path remains. Like the path of destruction had existed before Nanook was even born. Indeed. Seeker, hello. You want some? You want some Hind Lord 4.0, 4.1? Probably a typo somewhere in there, Seeker. Also, good Seeker, good to see you, my friend. Hope you're doing well. Happy weekend, Seeker. Same to you, Seki. I don't think I really gave you a proper welcome, everyone. Hope everyone is having a great weekend. Thanks, guys, for coming in. Sure, I'm always down to hear some lore. Give it to me. JD, so a path strider just walks the path and an emanator takes power from that path. Correct. Though path striders can also take a little bit of power, I think. It's not a lot. But an emanator takes power directly from the path. Yes, indeed. But then you also get into things like scions, like Don Hong isn't, and he is a scion of permanence. He is not an emanator of permanence. Like scions are like a bit like a slightly stronger path strider. It's weird. Second, like the path of order remains even when Shippei already assimilated it. Yeah, we know that. We know that. Considering what happened in Pentecote, ain't that right? Ain't that right, Sunday? But yeah, the path system is super interesting. It's very vague, but I think it's also like vague on purpose, or like it makes sense for it to be vague. Because whenever you define your power system behind philosophy, yeah, very difficult to like cement anything, right? So, back to Ashvale. Yeah, I think his power is something I want answers on immediately. Like, is it the veracity? If it's not the veracity, what is it? Is it like the hunt? Is it a corrupted version of the hunt? Is he what path strider is he? Is he a path strider of the hunt still? What the hell is the abyss that he talks about? Like, there's so many things about Ashvale that to me are much more interesting than I thought they were gonna be. And how old is he? Because like he supposedly like was there with like the events that happened with Shuhu. He was there. Like let's go see like everything Pearl said. No, that's Yao Gong. Hi Yao Gong. No, here we go. Let's further back. Like let's just call out all of his achievements, right? Here's what you called out, Seki. You know the fact that his power seemingly was given to him by Icy. Then you get the fact that he was like, oh, the very shadow that devoured the swarm and Lord Ravager Zulo, like, okay, like we're just like Ashvale is just someone who was there at the time Zulo was defeated. Also, obviously, Pearl is not saying here that Ashvale is the person who devoured the swarm, right? She's saying that his power is a part of what devoured the storm, which is why everyone thinks it's the veracity, right? Because a big part of the swarm was, you know, Tazaronth and Ouroboros being like, yeah, right? They weren't cool. And then obviously the big one everyone focuses on is the fact that he supposedly devoured Shuhu, an emanator of abundance. So, bro, I fucking love the fact that the abundance was like has a like influence on the Plan Arcadia story. I think it's a brilliant story decision. JD, I loved how Sunday says he doesn't want to be a god anymore. Suddenly, aha appears say whoever wins the games will become the Eon of Elation permanently. True, that is kind of funny. I actually didn't think about that. That said, I actually think that what they're going to do with Sunday here and Planet Arcadia, this isn't going to happen, but hypothetically say Sunday goes through his character arc in Planet Arcadia, right? Hypothetically, let's say he wins the Phantasy Moon games, right? Like, it's not us, the Trailblazer. It's not any of the other supplicants. Let's hypothetically say Sunday wins, right? After his character arc in Planet Arcadia, I would actually expect him to decline to become a god. I actually think that's where his character's direction is going. And I think a lot of people would agree with that. Like, I think Sunday by the end of Planet Arcadia would be the type of person to decline becoming the Eon of Elation permanently. So at least I hope that's what they do with him. Because to me, that would be just such great character writing. God, I love Sunday. Ooh, Seki. Did you delete some of your messages, or is that like a mod thing? Don't be afraid. I mean, there's really nothing to spoil here. Because 4.2 isn't out yet. But yeah, so but yeah, how old is Ashvale? Like, and how if he is super old, is he like a long life species from the Cienjo? Like, there's a lot of questions surrounding this guy, and like, yeah, it makes sense, right? He's La Mancha. He's the leader of the Galaxy Rangers. Pretty important individual. So, but TBD, right? Still a lot to figure out. If you were to ask me personally what I think is Ashvale's power, I do think it's just the veracity. I think that would be the most interesting thing, and I hope it's the veracity. So, Seki, I think it's very likely the power comes from the veracity, and if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense since it was gifted to him by Icy, who was very likely alive along with Akavili. Yeah, I think it's more likely to be the veracity. I hope it's the veracity. I think it would be most interesting if it was the veracity. How would you translate La Mancha in English? La Mancha, the spot or the stain. Oh fuck, my Spanish is rough, guys. My level of Spanish is, I would say, professional. I wouldn't say it's fluent. But yeah, something like the spot or the stain or something like that. Because that's la, obviously, is the feminine identification for the word the in this sentence, and then mancha is spot, stain, something along those lines. Hold on. Google Translate. Mancha. No, I don't want Japanese. I want Spanish. Stain. Yeah, stain is probably the word closest that I would use. The stain. Okay. Seeker, there is a poem in 4.1 about World's End that contains one half remembrance and one half propagation. Tazzy is coming back to take the force out of the finality, like remembrance in 3.7. Huh. I heard about it, but I had heard that it was just that first part. I didn't hear that Tazzy was coming back to like replace the force slot of the finality. Well, that'd be pretty cool, actually. Because like the remembrance finality almost happened. Obviously, you know, everything that Cyrene and the Trailblazer did, 3.7 prevented that from happening. So it would be kind of cool if like the universe was just like, hey, we need at all times a fourth finality. Like, causality dictates that we have four finalities at any point in time. So if the remembrance one isn't happening, we're gonna replace it. We're gonna replace it with the propagation. That's pretty cool. I'd be down for something like that. Seki, nah, man, I wrote something and then I saw it, wrote it wrong. Oh, it's all good, Seki. It's all good. I can't spell for my life. There are also other hints that point towards that, like 4.1 looks like the setup for Godslayer Protocol. I hope so. I want Godslayer Protocol to start getting some attention, which obviously we know that there's some things that are leaning towards that, right? In the trailers leading up to Planet Arcadia, we got hints that Jing Liu is going to be involved. We got some ominous like foreshadowing for Locha. So that's pretty cool. And obviously, now that we know that the abundance is connected to Planet Arcadia, they could definitely bring in the Godslayer protocol into Planet Arcadia in some way, shape, or form. But it's gonna be way down the line. Seki, I am from Mexico. La Mancha is literally that. The stain, the spot, those are fine. No, yeah, Seki, I am Mexican. Well, no, I am not Mexican. My parents are Mexican. I was born here in the States, so I am Hispanic. So like I am technically American, but I have Hispanic blood. Um but like when you Seki, obviously, like I said, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't mancha? Yes, I believe the word that translates closest to mancha is stain. But mancha in Spanish is less of a derogatory word than stain is in English, right? Because when you think of stain in the English language, you think of something that is typically negative, right? Oh, this has been stained, like almost corrupted in some way. Whereas mancha in Spanish feels more artistic. The meaning of the word is less derogatory in some way, but I don't think there's a good translation for it. But yeah, I think the stain is probably the best translation. So, anywho, sorry, I'm being a nerd about language and linguistics. So let me stop. But yeah, great job with Ashvale. I mean, let's go ahead and praise him here and now because I haven't done so up until this point. If you didn't realize that I liked Ashvale a lot in this story, definitely. I think one of the things I like most about Ashvale is that he's a versatile character. He can be funny, easygoing, and then at the drop of a dime, serious, intimidating, imposing. And then in between that, there's also the fact that he can be very caring and sympathetic and considerate, right? And loving, for like his friends at the syndicate. Like he's a character that's very well rounded. There's many different aspects to Ash Vale that make me like him a lot. I think he's a very versatile character, and I like characters like that. And then at the same time, he's got massive lore implications, a ton of mystery and questions surrounding him. Like this is a really, really great introduction for a character that I didn't think was going to get that much focus because number one, he's male, and number two, he's before the anniversary. So you know what I'm saying? But good, great job. My feelings towards Ashvale are very similar to my feelings towards Boot Hill. Like when Boot Hill was first introduced, where I was like, okay, he's kind of cool, but I don't think he's gonna be one of my favorite characters. And I wouldn't say Ashvale was like super high for me. Like I don't think he's like one of my all-time Star Rail characters, but he's much higher than I thought he was going to be. So yeah, dope character. Really stole the show in 4.1 in my opinion, along with Evanescia. I would pull for him if I wouldn't be saving for Silverwolf and Evanescia. You and everyone else, JD. You and everyone else. I think that is all of us right now. So Seki, it's like an ink stain rather than dirt. Exactly, Seki. Like it's just a difference in language, I think, the way it's presented. So, which is why I like that Ashvale's name is La Mancha and not the stain. I think La Mancha is a better title for him. Something curious about Yagwang and okay, cool, perfect. Let's transition to that. I want to talk about that. Boom. Yeah, here we go. This is the shot that I want. Something curious about Yagwang and Evanessia's conversation is that while Evanessia confirms she is being created by an Eon, Yagwang assumes it's the abundance when it could be a hot chew. Yes, technically, but it does kind of seem like she is an abomination of the abundance of some kind. Which honestly, I kind of want it to be both. I think it would be really cool if she was created by Yaosha, like if Evanessia was created to be uh an emanator of abundance of some kind, or like a patriarch of the abundance, but later ended up being an emanator of elation. I think that would be really cool. That's what I'm hoping they do with Evanescia. I love characters in Star Rail that you think they would be connected to a certain path, but then they end up being connected to a different path. I think that is super interesting personally. Seki Evanesia never confirmed she was created by the abundance specifically. Yep, indeed. I think it's like right, like it's like right here. Yeah, she says divine me, and then Yagwang divines Evanesia, confirms that Evanesia is, you know, an a, an existence that is at least close to emanator level, right? And she doesn't say that she is abundance here. Like Yang Guang gives her two options. Are you a fade kind native to Ahatopia or a long life species shaped by the ambrosial arbor? Yang Guang at this point is thinking in multiple choice. Like either one of these two, please confirm to me, because this could be a manipulation tactic. Evnesia does not fall for her bait and gives her a non-multiple choice answer. So yeah, good catch, Seki. But that said, if you were to ask me, I do think it's going to be the abundance. I just hope it's that she is. I just hope that she is a past rider of the elation still, despite being a denizen of the abundance. JD, I would pull for him if I wouldn't be. Oh no, I already read that. My bad, guys. This whole conversation is super interesting. I mean, we already addressed the fact that Evanesia potentially being connected to the abundance and whatever this new ambrosial arbor tree is. So obviously that is like one of the biggest reveals. Obviously, whatever this Panarch Elwood, the embodiment of instant and eternity is, who knows what that is. One of the things that I was really surprised by is that this sentence here isn't bolded, right? You know, when they do big reveals, they will like bold it and color it like gold or like tannish. I was surprised that this wasn't bolded. So who knows if that's going to be important at all. But there's something else I want to talk about. It's, I think, further down this way. Or did I skip it? No, I skipped it. She's already implied this, but I want to talk about it some more. Yeah, here we go. What does this mean? Because Evanesia kind of talked about this in 4.0 as well. But the fact that she continues to repeat this is interesting to me. Supposedly, she's kind of like this overseer of the Phantasm Moon games, right? Someone that doesn't necessarily get to play, but is still involved in some way. A referee, the game, the rules maker, who knows, right? Commissioner, who the fuck knows? My whole thing is obviously there's two questions behind this. Number one, who gave her this role? Probably Aha, but is it, you know, someone else beside Aha? Could it be a Sat Pramad? Who knows, right? But also, like, what story relevance is this role going to have? Because whenever you introduce a role like this of an arbitrator or like a referee or some kind, they are always supposed to be neutral, right? A neutral character. That is the very definition of what an arbitrator is. But in Star Rail, characters are rarely ever neutral, right? There's always some want or need or desire, agenda behind everything that any character does, right? The only characters that are really truly neutral in Star Rail, you could argue, are the Eons, because they are just gods. They can just decide if they're neutral. But even then, not necessarily, because the path system exists, right? They can't be neutral because they are forced to follow their path at all times. And if something endangers that path, then they have to act on it. So my whole thing is, despite Evanesia being like this arbitrator type of existence, what is her deal? What does she want, right? What is her intention? What's the agenda behind her? Because I don't think she's going to be evil or antagonistic in any way. So what's the deal, right? Like, is she going to be like a guide of some kind for the Trailblazer? But then if that's the case, that's unfair for everyone else. But she seems to be acting on it because she shows up in the story, right? There she is. Wait, hold on. There she is. She's here. So, also, again, very telling that Evanesia says that the abundance isn't as terrifying as what the Xianzhou portrays him as, which, you know, to be fair, not the Xianzhou portrays the abundance as extremely negative, right? that's just another path, just two paths clashing, and what we've heard from the abundance is very terrifying. So could be the case, but JD, I died watching the scene of Evanescia running and the Trailblazer throwing up. Wait, what scene was that? Wait, what scene was that? Oh, in 4.0. Sorry. I thought you were talking about this story patch, and I was like, huh? I don't remember that. No, yeah, in 4.0, yeah, that was pretty funny. JD, I would say the arbitrators of equilibrium are truly neutral. That is true. That is true. So, but I don't think she's. I'm not saying she's connected to equilibrium, but you're referring to the conversation I was having that characters in Star Rail are very rarely ever neutral. Seki, based off the speech she recites, she says the Eon who told her to say it also thought no one would believe her, and that sounds like something Aha would say just for the lulz. Absolutely. I think she's connected to the elation more than she's connected to the abundance. My my theory is ultimately what I want, which is biased, which is I want her to be created as an denizen of the abundance, but she later became an elation pathstrider. I think to me that's what I want personally. Oh no, I just thought of a crazy theory. Well, Seki, put it in the chat. That's what this stream is for. It's to be crazy and theorize and hyperfixate. That's what we're here for. Yeah, and oh no, you're right. In 4.1 where she with the bread. No, because when I was thinking of her running, I was thinking of the scene where Evanescia saves the Trailblazer in 4.0 from like the school. When I was like, the Trailblazer didn't throw up, but you're talking about this scene. Hold on. Right here. Let's watch it because it is really funny. Yeah. And then he's just dead. God, I love this character. Like I said, Evanescia has been, up until this point, alongside Himiko, my favorite character so far of Planet Arcadia. Because to me, she's the one of the few characters that has been being properly like built up. Like she is being introduced and slowly progressing as a character. Slow reveals, getting a little bit more personality in this story version. Probably going to get a lot more with her, obviously, in the anniversary patch because that's when she's releasing. So I think they've done a really good job of Evanescia with like slowly building her up to be an important character, which is why I'm kind of upset that she's not the anniversary character. Like obviously she was going to be, and then everything that happened with Japan and China happened, and now they had to pivot from Evanescia being the anniversary character to Silverwolf being the anniversary character, and that just kind of makes me sad, man. So you have that bread in your inventory, by the way. Do I really? Is that oh yeah, they do give you the bread. I do remember getting the bread afterwards. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. All right, let's see this theory, Seki. Okay. So you see how Evanescia was only able to go outside the courtyard for a bit, and with everything we know, watch Evanescia be an emanator of Aha, but at the same time be the fucking tree. That would make her elation and abundance. Like a fey spirit of the tree. That's something actually that is not entrenched, but that is like something that happens in Japanese like culture. Like that is a thing I think that or not Japanese. There is some thing out there, but like a tree's spirit. That would be pretty cool. I'd be down for that. Would make a bit more sense if the tree was pink instead of the color that they decided to put it. God, why did all this shit have to happen, man? Why couldn't this tree be pink? And you guys know this tree was pink, right? Originally. They change all the trees in Planet Arcadia from pink to this yellow. Makes me so sad. Secret, but I take a Stellarone Hunter as an Annie push. Oh yeah, if they were gonna replace anyone to be the Annie push, I'm glad it was Silverwolf. Imagine if it was like Pearl, I would be so upset. Not that I dislike Pearl. I think Pearl is super interesting. Pearl is one of the most interesting characters of Planet Arcadia. The whole concept of her being an Intellitron, like being robotic, but her like creed, her mission, her like modus operandi being like the pursuit of understanding art and like replicating art, but like, you know, not replicating art, but like being able to draw art and trying to replicate it to have the same soul as the original's creator, despite being a robot. Oh, I love those type of characters. I love characters that are like emotionless or robotic in a way who later come to understand emotion. That is my tea. God, I love those type of characters. So hopefully Pearl gets the proper development that she deserves when she releases. But yeah, if they were gonna do anyone to replace Evanescia as the anniversary main push, it had to be Silverwolf in my opinion. Couldn't be anyone else. Would have been upset with Sparksy. Would have been upset with Ashvale. Would have been upset with well Himiko, I guess technically, but like Himiko needs time. She needs time to develop as a character because she's a main character, right? She needs as much time to develop as Finon did. Pearl is represent AI art in 4.x Lamau. The difference is Pearl is an interesting character and AI art is not interesting. That's me. By the way, I know how to make AI art. I have made AI art. I For those of you who know what stable diffusion means, I have stable diffusion installed on my computer. I use automatic 1111 as my user interface, even though I know that it's shit. It's the most simple one. It's the easiest one for me to use. So I make AI art, and even I think it's fucking bullshit. JD, it was totally a Sakura tree. Yep. Absolutely. Oh, fucking hell, man. Why do human beings have to suck, and as a result of human beings sucking, we get political tensions between nations of the world that lead to our favorite games being influenced at the last second? Isn't that just unfortunate? One other thing with Evanescia that I want to talk about, something that I haven't seen a lot of attention on, surprisingly. I guess maybe it's because not everyone is as big of a Himiko fan as I am, considering I am obsessed with this character currently. Come on. Okay, further back. Here we go. What? Watch this, guys. So we okay, no, not quite there. So this is the moment where we're about to go to the last area, right? The Penacony area, basically right before the climax of the story. And I feel like a lot of people actually did notice this, but not a lot of people are talking about it. So I want to bring more attention to it. So you're about to get on the train, or like you're about to do the last puzzle. Himiko's waiting for you. At this moment in time, it has been mostly you, March, and Evanescia up until this point. So you reunite with Himiko, right? Himiko's like, hey, she was like being a mom for a second. Like, are you guys okay? Like, oh shit, Daybreak Squadron, haha, like big antagonist. And then immediately after, Himiko notices Evanescia, right? Evanescia walks up, and Evanescia immediately, nice to see you again, Express Navigator Miss Himiko. Evanescia has never met Himiko, at least in the story that we know of. Himiko arrived in Planet Arcadia. She has not met Evanescia. And Evanescia says this very naturally, like extremely naturally, almost like confidently. And this puts Himiko off. Like Himiko's like, oh shit, like have we met before? And take a look at the way they present this dialogue option. Like, oh shit. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like Evanescia's like, oh, I fucking messed up. Like, of course, yeah, totally. I've seen you on the news. That's how I know you. It's such an honor to meet you for the first time. Totally. Like, clearly to me, Evanescia and Himiko used to know each other in some way, shape, or form. And for whatever reason, Evanescia still remembers, and Himiko does not. I'm just putting it out there. I don't know what it means. I don't know what it could be. It probably is just the fact that Evanescia seemingly just knows the story of Planet Arcadia in some way, shape, or form because of her whole like comic book like reading and like writing and drawing skit thing that she does. But who knows? Who knows? Second, even more fuel to the theory of her being the tree. I'm going to lose it if it turns out she really is. I think that'd be really cool. I think it's a good theory. They would need to write it a bit more to connect to it, but there's still a little bit of clues leading to it. Seki, well, technically, Evanesia had already met Himiko when Himiko, Welt, and Pearl went to the courtyard. They just didn't notice Evanesia. That is true. The thing is, um, the way this is being presented, it's like Evanesia expects Himiko to recognize her. You know what I'm saying? Like this is very clearly like a oh, like I'm seeing an old friend after a certain period of time. Like hi, nice to see you again. And then Himiko's like a oh, pardon my memory. Have we met before? And then Evanesia is like oh shit, like oh fuck, like I gotta take this back, right? Now it could just be what you said, Seki. Like it could just be that I'm reading too much into this, but I think there could be a further connection. And I hope there is, because I think this is interesting. Andreas, what's going on? How's it going? Happy weekend, Andreas. Hope you're doing well, my friend. What's going on, brother? Everything all right with you? You chilling? We're hyper fixating. Specifically on this character. I can't stop talking about this character, seemingly. My boyfriend, say hi to his name, Kai. Hey, what's going on? Oh, hey, Cal, sorry. What's going on, Cal? Good to see you, man. Hope you're both doing well, Andreas and Cal. Happy weekend. Happy time zones. JD, Hoyover is secretly watching the stream and taking notes. If they want to watch and take notes, it should not be my stream. Maybe in Amphorius or Penacony, even though I didn't stream Penacony. Maybe then. I think I was more on top of my game in Amphorius. In Amphorius, I predicted decent number of things, and I could generally see where the plot was going. In Planet Arcadia, like I said, at this moment in time, I'm still a very very rusty on my lore and stuff. So I think I need to catch up, because I present myself as this like all like oh I used to do, well I still kind of do creative writing, and I kind of like know the way generally writers do their stories and kind of prepare for story releases and stuff. And like right now, I'm just not that. I'm just not that at this moment. If you guys are smarter than me, certainly, especially like if you guys know two of my other viewers, Sage and Stevo, they're really smart. Sage and Stevo know what they're talking about, man. They will come up with some crazy shit, and like I like listen to their theories, and I'm just like fucking hell, like that just makes so much sense. Sometimes, and it doesn't come true sometimes, but like I wish it came true. Seki, your theory about Evanesia being like connected to the tree, like maybe being the tree's spirit, is actually cool. Talking about like theories that like I sometimes will read that like I think okay that's something I want to happen. That's actually the more I think about it, I think that'd be really cool. No, for sure. I'm just saying it could be that, but I would love to be that Evanesia met young Himiko instead and have Himiko just didn't remember for any reason. That's exactly, Seki, exactly. That's what I'm thinking. And that's what I want. I hope it's the case that Himiko and Evanesia went to um went to the academy together, and that some shit happened in the Phantasy Moon games from 15 years ago, and Himiko doesn't remember anymore, and Evanesia does. And maybe that whole event is what led to Evanesia becoming the arbitrator of the Phantasy Moon games in some way. I hope they expand on that. I really do. So, but yeah, good to see you, Andreas. Hope you're doing well, both you and Cal. Thanks for coming in, guys. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate the support. So yeah, man, bro, I hyper fixate on Himiko way too much, man. You guys know me. You guys shouldn't be expecting anything different. I've talked about this before, right? Um, there's my three favorite characters in this game. Right now, this current moment in time, go as follows. Number one is Firefly. Number two is Cyrene, and as many of you expected, number three is now Himiko. It's not Sunday anymore. Um, but pretty much from the moment Penacony ended, I knew in my head that those three characters that I just mentioned were eventually going to be my favorite three characters in the game because of the following reasons. My favorite two characters from Honkai Impact the Third. Number one, the very first one was Himiko Murata from Honkai Impact the Third, and then eventually it became Alicia. And obviously, I would be excited for some time. It was actually Kiana, but Alicia eventually became it again. Right now, it's still Alicia. Um, but in my head, I was like, okay, once Stariel finally decides to do the Alicia XP, I'm going to love her because I love Alicia, right? And then once Stariel finally decides to give Himiko some fucking screen time, I'm going to love her because I already had Himiko always super high up with virtually no screen time, and now she's getting fucking screen time. So I'm just weak. Those three characters are like my weakness. Firefly just ended up being like lightning in a bottle, just a complete anomaly. But Cyrene and Himiko were always going to be in the top three, I think. They just needed the screen time, and now both characters have it. So basically what I'm trying to say is, you guys know how obsessed I was with Cyrene and Amphorius. You guys know that basically that's all I could talk about, right? Now that Amphorius is over, Himiko has now taken over. I will not shut up about Himiko until Planet Arcadia is over, and probably for some time after that. So that said, please bring back Cyrene. Please, please, please. I miss her. I miss her. This entire channel was dedicated to Cyrene for like over a year. I have a theory here. What if Evanescia saw Himiko in one of her dreams? Could be interesting. That said, I don't think it would be that impactful. If we were in Amphorius or Penacony, Penacony would be cool. Back in Penacony, dreams were, I think, more impactful story-wise. Because it was the land of dreams. So. But I definitely think they're connected, JD, in some way, shape, or form. I just think neither of us know yet. I just hope they expand on it. I don't want it to be as simple as, oh, Evanescia saw Himiko welt, in the courtyard, and that's it, right? So we'll see what happens. Let's talk about there was something in my head that I wanted to talk about, and I completely forgot. It's like maybe we talked about Ashvale, we talked about Evanescia, we've talked about Himiko at length. Oh no, we haven't talked enough about Himiko. I talked about it briefly at the start of the stream, but we need to talk about it more. No. Yeah. Come on. Here we go. Here we go. We can use this as a backdrop. Let me catch up the chat here really quick. JD, for me, Evanescia's dreams play an important role since it seems to be prophetic. Yes, I wouldn't say prophetic in a way. More that her dreams seem to be like visions of the future in a certain way, I would say. Because I think she just kind of knows the story of Planet Arcadia. Because like her whole thing with like the comic that she will write on and read and stuff, to me that's just that comic just the story of Planet Arcadia that we are currently going through. So don't mind it. My first is Bronya, Hacker, then Alicia Chu on the second season. I love Coralie. I don't quite remember Coralie, but hey, fellow Alicia lover, let's take it. We take those. Did I show you guys my limited edition Cyrene bag from Japan when I went? You guys know how I went to Japan, right? A couple months ago. By pure coincidence. I did not plan this. I had been planning to go at that period of time for about a year and a half at that point. Pure coincidence. I ended up going to Japan at the same time Cyrene released in Star Rail. So when I went to Akihabara in Japan, they were having this big Cyrene event. It was awesome. All of the billboards and the screens around Akihabara were showing Cyrene's trailer and stuff. And I think at one point they even had like an interview with the Japanese voice actor for Cyrene. But they had this promotion where if you spent a certain amount of money at a specific store that was involved with the event, you got this limited edition Cyrene like bag. Like it's like a bag, and it's just her drip market art across the bag. But what I'm planning on doing is I'm planning it on taking the bag and framing it like inside of a frame, almost as if it was a poster. I'm thinking about putting it on this wall right here, so that it's always there. But I'm not quite sure. Let me catch up. Here we go. JD, oh, I love Senendina. Senendina. I assume these are Honkai Impact the third characters that I completely forgot about. Like the Flame Chasers, bro. It's been way too long since I watched the Flame Chase story in Honkai Impact the third. My bad, guys. I am just a filthy casual when it comes to Honkai Impact the third. Second, can we talk about Ashvale devouring Shuhu when it supposedly had been sealed by the Cienja, but now it turns out Ashvale devoured him? Yep. I mean, I talked about it briefly earlier. Like, how the fuck was Ashvale even there? Like, hello? Like, Shuhu was a long time ago. Like, that was back during Prime High Cloud Quintet. Like, crazy stuff. Imagine if Shuhu was the final boss of Planet Arcadia. Do you know how insane that would be? Me and Goldie were talking about that the other day. Goldie, a fellow friend of the channel, also a streamer. Like, bro, Shuhu being the final boss of Planet Arcadia would be so cool. I don't know how they would do it. Senendina is one of the main characters in Part 2. Gotcha. That's why, because I haven't kept up with Part 2. I'll look her up. Hold on. Honkai Impact the Third, Senendina. Oh, this character. I've seen her everywhere. Yeah, her design is really cool. I'm a sucker for characters with this type of hair. Almost kind of looks like Alicia a little bit. Like the way her facial structure is set. Dope character. JD. Seki, which means that in order to make sense, it means Ashvale was there when Blade and Don Fong attempted to resurrect Bai Hong. Yeah, that's exactly. Like, Ashvale being involved with devouring Shuhu supposedly has so many lore implications. It's crazy. Like, does he even know Blade and Don Hong? Oh no, he does know Blade, right? Because he shows up. He shows up and like calls him Ying Zing at the end of the story, right? Like right around over here, like at the very end. Like, I probably skipped it, but you guys know what I'm saying. Andreas Coralie is the puppy girl with a big hammer, the main Valkyrie sent out for Mars expedition. Well, I did it for Sedendina. Let me do it again for Coralie. Honkai Impact the Third, Coralie. I don't think I've seen this character before, but she is really cute. Ooh, she has like a fucking different form. That's like draconic in some way. Bit too much skin showing for my taste, especially on a character that's being presented to be this young. But her like default version is really cute. She is daughter as fuck. This just tells me that I need to go back and reimburse myself into my Honkai Impact the Third lore. But first, I have to do my Stavria lore because, God's sakes, I don't fucking know anything these days. What did I? Like I said, I forgot something. Like I think like 2 or 3 weeks ago that I was like, really, you're better than this. Like I can't believe I forgot it. JD, they could bring Shuhu if it takes over Blade's body. Yeah, that's like the most likely scenario, right? Which I think would be cool. But I would want Blade to be okay. Seki, if you remember in 4.0, Ashvale says that the name Don Hong sounds familiar, which means he also knew Don Fong. Oh, shit. True. Well, if he knew Blade as Ying Sing, I would assume that he knew Don Fong. But yeah, that's like a hard confirmation, isn't it? or like as close to a hard confirmation as you can get. See, this is what I'm saying, man. You guys are way smarter than I am. I don't remember these things anymore. I just kind of like sit here and I play the game. And I'm just like zero IQ. I'm playing the game. I'm just like, oh, Himiko, mother, and then I just move on. I don't remember anything. I'm not smart anymore. Low IQ Gulio. That's me. Okay, speaking about Himiko, we're gonna talk about Himiko. I promise to be as unsimp as I possibly can be, even though this is my favorite character in Planet Arcadia and like my third favorite character in the game. Um, I think Himiko and Ryusuke's dynamic was written beautifully. So good. We talked about it a bit, how we would have preferred that Himiko's death cliffhanger at the end of 4.0 wasn't as baitish as it was, right? With like 4.1, it was like, oh, it was a joke. You know, I recognize you, my daughter, right? Okay, whatever. But thankfully, we instead got what I believe is a really strong potential character dynamic that's going to last for the majority of Planet Arcadia. Himiko and Ryusuke's distance and tension between each other is super interesting to me. Mainly because Himiko has always been presented as the Astral Express member that kind of has everything together, right? She is the mother of the Express. She's, always like, oh, we should do this and we should do that, and best that we do this. She's mentoring the young ones, providing guidance. Whereas with Ryusuke, introducing Ryusuke, we get to see her be vulnerable, right? We get to see her be human. She's, uncomfortable. She's tense. There's a few moments where her voice raises, right? A few moments where she's stiff and, not necessarily as quote unquote motherly as she normally is. And you can kind of see her kind of be a bit more easygoing with the Trailblazer in this story patch. She's laughing a bit more. She's more easygoing. She's more willing to say what's on her mind. And I love that. And I think it's mostly the influence of Ryusuke here. Because Ryusuke's personality is not what I expected. He's pretty easygoing too. He's a bit of a jokester, bit of a clown, but not clown as a, derogatory. He's lighthearted. He's generally this kind of like he's the type of character, the type of dad to make dad jokes. You know what I'm saying? And that's bringing out a side of Himiko that we don't usually get to see. But vice versa, despite not knowing Ryusuke for that long, Himiko is also influencing Ryusuke's character. Like, you can kind of see him, his natural inclination is to be easygoing, lighthearted, etc., etc. But you can kind of see him kind of like, okay, well, I've wronged my daughter by not being there for her for the majority of her life, and I need to tiptoe my way around her. He's being honest with Himiko and transparent, but at the same time, you can tell he wants to be closer to her and spend more time with her, but needs to hold back. He has these moments where he like is almost self-derogatory in some ways, and sometimes Himiko appreciates it, and other times, it makes her uncomfortable. What I'm trying to say is, this father-daughter dynamic that they've written between both of these characters in such a short amount of time is really well done. It's emotionally resonant, in my opinion. I care about both characters way more than I did before, both individually and together. And I think it's brought out sides of their personality that we wouldn't get to see without the other character being present. So just bravo, Hoyoverse, because it's difficult to write an NPC this well. And they've done it super well with 3 NPCs in Planet Arcadia. I think Ryusuke, Kuchiba, and Full Wish are all really great NPCs. And I hope they stay around for a while. So. Seki, it was refreshing for sure. It was a good way to start the path despite the fake bait, but I like it a lot. Yes, I agree, Seki, 1000%. Despite the quote-unquote fake bait, they did a good job redeeming themselves with the writing of these 2 characters. I think, obviously, I praise Himiko a lot because she is my 3rd favorite character in the game, but I genuinely think she's been handled super well so far in Planet Arcadia. Definitely the highlight of the story so far for me, aside from, alongside Evanescia. So, JD, probably he knew all the Cloud Quintet characters. You're talking about Ashvale, right, JD? I assuming still. Yeah, I if I would assume that Ashvale was acquainted with, at the very least, all of the High Cloud Quintet. So yes, gotcha. Yeah, that's what I thought. So, but yeah, but the last thing I'll mention on Ryusuke is up until the Daybreak Squadron being confirmed as the Herald of Death, I actually was leaning towards Ryusuke being the Herald of Death for a long time. So if they want to continue the Herald of the Death like storyline, like I said, if they want to do it, it's gonna take some writing gymnastics to do so. But if they want to, I think they should do it with Ryusuke. I think Ryusuke being the Herald of Death would be really cool. It would suck. It would be heartbreaking in so many different ways. But I think him being the Herald of Death would be awesome. I want it to happen, and I don't want it to happen because it would break my heart, but also it would be super interesting. So, talking about something different. Let's talk about Full Wish, right? And the cult. Here we go. Come on. There we go. No, so Full Wish, well, number one, she's hot as fuck. Let's just get that out of the way. I'm gonna be simming for this character for a long period of time. Okay, let me just saying that. All right, moving on. But Full Wish, good job with her character, right? Like they introduced Full Wish, and I was like, we're getting another antagonist being introduced out of nowhere. Like I was like, don't know about this one, but her introduction was powerful. She was intimidating. We kind of got an understanding of like what type of character she is and what her goals are, right? Even if we don't know her exact goal, we have an idea based on her personality and the type of person she is of what she is aiming for, right? She wants power of some kind. She wants influence in some way, and she's likely working alongside someone else, the true mastermind of Pan Arcadia, whether that's Asat Pramad, some type of emanator of the abundance, whether it's Yausha directly, who knows, right? But I find Full Wish a compelling antagonist. I don't think she's, Lygus yet. Like, I don't think anyone's Lygus, right? I don't think it's going to be a long time before we get another antagonist on the same level as Lygus, if ever. But I think, unlike the Daybreak Squadron, I can get behind this character as an antagonist. I think she's going to be built up with time. We're going to get a little bit more of her as time goes on. She'll be more interesting, the more elements of her character that is presented to us. And hopefully they end up doing her right, because at this moment in time, I'm trusting the process. Because I think the society, the Smiling Society, they're also interesting. Many of us knew that they were going to be antagonistic after 4.0, right? And they pretty much are. But I respect and admire how well they handled the cult in 4.1. Like, they straight up, related it to real life cults, right? A lot of the elements that you saw a part of the Smiling Society in 4.1 were elements that you find in the real world, in our world. Like, you will find the fact that the cult leadership will prey on unsuspecting people who have been wronged in their life by other people. They are vulnerable. They are depressed. They need some type of assistance. And unfortunately, they are not in the right state of mind to recognize that they are being manipulated, and they become fanatical. They just do. And also, cults absolutely will. Maybe not to the extent that the Smiling Society did in 4.1, but cults will influence you physically as well. Like, they're not going to do something called like the Smiling Transformation or something. They're not going to alter your very body to like not feel pain. But there are other elements of physicality with cults that are absolutely relevant in the real world. So yeah, it's definitely, I think, being well handled. It's being connected to elements that are in the real world that make it a bit more interesting. And they did a good job with her design. She's one of those NPCs like Kuchiba, like Ryusuke, that has a dedicated, more polished design than most NPCs. I mean, just look, right? This is an NPC right here, and this is an NPC. But they are not created equal. This is just a random NPC. I don't even know their name. This is a real character. So good job with Full Wish. I need a little bit more of her to determine whether or not she's going to be a good antagonist, but trusting the process, like I said. Bella on YouTube. Good to see you, Bella. Been a while. Hope all is well with you and yours. Happy weekend, my friend. Full Wish is compelling. I'm happy that we're getting different antagonists. No Lycus clones. Yes! Yes, thank you, Bella, for saying it. It's taken a while for me to say it. I am so happy that they're just not recycling Xander clones. I had said it a long time ago. As much as I loved Lygus / Xander, them making Lygus just a one of 9 bodies to me was a risky writing decision. Now, I think it's going to pay off with some things. Like Skrullum being a Xander clone is super interesting to me. I hope they do that. I think that would be so fucking cool if Skrullum was a Xander clone. But what I'm worried about is now Xander's presence being everywhere across the Star Rail story. Because I think we need fresh antagonists. I think we need fresh perspectives, new opposing forces that we can understand and get behind, and then that will drive the story in a different way, in a unique way that we haven't had before. Because, like, I'm worried now that, like, fucking hell, that's a robot, right? Right there, it's a fucking red robot. What if that's a Xander clone? You know? That's what I'm worried about, is, like, everything is, like, is that a Xander clone? Like, could that be a Xander clone? But so far in Pen Arcadia, it hasn't felt like that. It's felt like every antagonist I feel is unique and special enough to where I don't even suspect them as a Xander clone. Obviously, because none of them are robotic in nature. But I'm happy that Star Rail didn't fall into the trap of, like, we created a really compelling antagonist with Lygus, the best antagonist in the game. Now we're just going to reuse him constantly, right? And eventually tire ourselves out of Lygus. So thankfully, thank you for saying that, Bella, because it's something that I talked about before. Seki, I fucked up again. Just wanted to say Full Wish is super sus. I want to see what they cook. I mean, well, she's confirmed to be super sus, right? Like, she is currently, this is the main antagonist of Pen Arcadia, currently. Like, Ashvale, Pearl, the Astral Express, Kuchiba, all of us are there aligned with the fact that Full Wish needs to be stopped in some way, or at the very least supervised. So, I don't think she's the main antagonist of Pen Arcadia, but I think she's one of them. Bella, cults tend to create systems of control, like controlling your food, yes. Controlling your calorie intake, what you wear, yes. And how you talk, yes. Bella, you're just enabling me at this moment. This is like prime Steph Curry, Kevin Durant here. Like, you are tossing me lobs and I'm dropping 50 at the moment in time. Thank you for your assists, because you are doing well. Hey, hope you are well, Chu. I keep missing your streams, but I caught your VODs. Hey, Bella, it's perfectly okay with NAJD, Bella, Andreas, Seeker, if you're still around, Seki. Never feel as if there's any pressure to join any of my streams. It's great to have you here. I love talking with you guys live, but please watch me on your own time whenever you can. Just whenever you... I'm supposed to be a source of happiness and peace for you, not the other way around. That is my role as an entertainer. Bella, I kind of hope Screwy isn't one to only because it robs him of his assisting agency, then we'd just be waiting for Lycus to appear. Yeah, see, I think that could be the case with Skrullum's agency being robbed by being a Xander clone. My thought process is that is the source of conflict. Is that whenever we finally do get Skrullum character depth and character development, the source of conflict will be him trying to regain his agency, resisting being a Xander clone. That to me is what's interesting. So, but yes, absolutely. It is very true. Seki, I am behind a theory that says that the voice the Smiles research cult is hearing is a Sot Pramod and not a Ha. That would make a lot of sense. Yeah, I agree. Seki, I think it's one of those things that is super obvious in a story, right? Like, it's so obvious. They're just like, well, it can't be a Sot Pramod. That's just too obvious. And it just is. Like, sometimes things are so obvious that you're just like, okay, that's not the case. And it's like a plot twist, right? And that ends up being the case. And other things and stories are just like so obvious because that's what they are. And I just think Asap Pramod is 1000% behind this the Smiles cult. 100%. So what he's trying to do with the smiling cult, who knows? Who knows, right? So we'll see what happens. Asap Pramod is still such a wild card. Like we don't know. We haven't gotten any hint of what he might be doing. He hasn't. And someone correct me if I'm wrong. Has Asap Pramod even been mentioned in Planet Arcadia up until now? Like, has his name come up in text at all? I don't think so, right? Or am I blind? Bella, I like studying cults in a high control group, so seeing how HSR handles this cult has been interesting. They use a lot of tactics inside Full Wish's speech. I agree, Bella. I don't quite study up on cults. I would assume the way that you do. But what I do know about, cults and cult-like organizations, they have done a really good job at making this smiling society pretty close to what a real life cult would be like and the methods and practices they use to control their members. It's refreshing. It's like you can tell that Sawrail did their research more so than I did. Seki, no, he hasn't been mentioned at all. Gotcha. And Bella, you said the same thing. Okay, that's what I'm saying. Sapramod obviously going to play a role in Planet Arcadia because he's just the Lord Ravager of Elation. So we'll see what happens with him. But yeah, Full Wish, great. We talked about her already a little bit, but I didn't give her like a dedicated section, so let's do it. Pearl. Here we go. I like Pearl a lot, man. Pearl, for me, she's not quite been as standout as like Himiko or Evanescia, right? She hasn't necessarily like surpassed my expectations the way Ashvale did. Pearl has been just the textbook example of just a great character that you expected to be great, and she just is great. You know what I'm saying? Like, we all thought Pearl was going to be a great character, and she just has been. Like, she's just been interesting. She's been fun. She's been influential within the story. She's had a big role. And this is all stuff that I wanted to see from Pearl and expected to see from Pearl, and it's what we're seeing. And I'm just happy that they haven't fucked her up. The very concept of Pearl, let's circle back to this scene right here. Being, like I said, like you can kind of see, like, she presents herself as this like emotionless, like very logical figure, but she does, with every scene that we see her, become more and more human, and like, look at this expression after Ashvale says this to her. She's thinking, she's being very thoughtful, very introspective about this. Like, a robot doesn't put forward this kind of expression. You can tell that she's transforming little by little, becoming more and more human as her, fucking, what's the word? The modus operandi starts to become more and more personal to her. The concept of her being an Intellatron that pursues kind of like the concept of art or creating art, super interesting, super great thing to assign to this character, and seeing it actually come into action within the story has been great so far. I loved this scene, the way that she reacts to Ashvale's, like, I wouldn't call it praise, but like reassurance almost in some way. God, it's really great. By the way, who ships these two? Who ships Pearl and Ashvale? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. I think they're really cute, personally. I think they're cute. I think they work really well off one another. Their dialogue just matches really well. Their personalities play off one another. They have just a lot of natural on-screen chemistry. So yeah, I ship it. We've gotten a lot of good ships recently, haven't we? Ashvale and Pearl, Sunday and Yao Guang and 4.0. Thank you, Planet Arcadia, for giving me more ships to hyperfixate on. Also, no Sunday, no Yao Guang in 4.1. Are you kidding me? Come on, man. Give me more. Seki, I just wanted to cook with their in-game model. I don't think Asat Pramod would be a boss because that's not how he operates. But it would be cool regardless seeing him in game. Yeah, I think we'll see him in game. But I also just think he's gonna be a boss, right? I mean, he's a Lord Ravager. Maybe he's not the final boss of Point Arcadia, but I do think we'll see him as some type of antagonist to. Sorry, I got a little bit of like inner burps there for a bit. Bella, she is subtle and solid. The push and pull between her and Asheville is fun. Bella, you are reading my language at the moment. You are in my head. You know what? Do you want to take over the stream? Do you here you can sit in my office chair. You would do this better than I would. Because you were just in my head. You were just saying what I am intending to say, just better than I am. Yes, she is subtle and quiet and reserved, but her character is powerful if you pay attention, right? Because that's the whole definition of subtle, right? So, really excited for her character. Like release patch, she's rumored to be 4.3, right? Like it's rumored to be her and is it Aventurine SP in 4.3? Who is rumored to come out with Pearl? I'm almost more excited for her release patch than I am for Anniversary, to be honest. I want this character to get the attention that she deserves. Bella raised hand. It was foreshadowed really heavily with her conversation with Jade, who talked about a metamorphosis within the Stonehearts. Yep. Mm-hmm. God, bro, the Stonehearts are good, aren't they? They're fucking good. We got Aventurine. We got Pearl. Topaz is also really interesting. I've always said I think Topaz is an underrated character. Now we just need Jade's screen time to probably develop her. Second, I'm going to be honest. I play in JP, so I don't really see the ship between Ashvale and Pearl or Sunday or Yaoguang. But hey, if people like it, it's cool. Yeah, I mean, you're always going to get language differences, right? Certain characters in certain translations are presented differently across others, right? So perhaps when I stream, I should make it clear that I play in English, and so my experience is, dependent on the fact that I play in English, right? Um, so in Japan, if their language presents Ashvale, Pearl, Sunday Yangguang differently, it is what it is, unfortunately. But in English, I love both. So the voice acting carries the ship. Yeah, hold on. Let's play a little bit. Here we go. So there, at this point in time, Ashvale is, moving away from the conversation with Pearl here at the very end. I'm gonna turn on audio for this. It's the only time I'm gonna turn on audio tonight. But I do kind of want to show. I don't want to say how intimate, because saying that Pearl and Ashvale are intimate with each other is, I think, incorrect. That does get into like deep shipping territory that I'm not interested in involving myself in. But you can tell that these characters are starting to resonate with each other more personally than they expected themselves to. Does that make sense? Like both Ashvale and Pearl probably went into this partnership like, hey man, it's just business. It's just business. I have my goals. You have your goals. Let's work together, right? But now there's clearly something more. Listen to the voice acting here. Obviously, the messages, the actual dialogue is one thing, but the voice acting is something else.
Right. You mentioned several times wanting to replicate the works of Graphia. I don't know much about art. But I was considering that, despite the lack of artistic quality in your strokes when sealing those fissures today, to the people of this world, your creation is just as important as the works of Graphia. Not a single innocent soul was lost on this day because of your protection. Looking back to the ancestral painter of the Cindereth Age, do you truly think she cared about the artistic value of each stroke when she created world and
Look at her
canvas?
reaction, the light in her eyes.
Tisk. But what do I know? These are just crude observations from an amateur, so pay them no mind. I'll be on my way.
Really good dynamic. Really good. Whether or not you ship them or not, I think it's difficult to not acknowledge that there is now a deeper connection between them. Maybe it is just as business partners, but certainly a deeper connection. Him just saying it already is a big step. So, yeah, the dub carries most of the ships since the VA are a couple. The VA and the localization like that, my lady, doesn't exist in the JP one. He just says her name. Gotcha. Well, listen, man, I'll take the English one. I'll take the English localization because I like the ship. I like it. There is an understanding forming between them about each other. Yes, absolutely. And understanding between two characters can eventually lead to connection. And that is what we experience stories for, is to see the connections between characters and stories, identify with them, relate with them, and experience the emotions behind them. So good job, Hoyoverse, and good job, Star Rail. You know what? I think that's mostly the main things I wanted to talk about. We talked about all the major players. We talked about Himiko. We talked about Ashvale. We talked about Pearl. We talked about Evanesia. We talked about Ryusuke, Full Wish. Last but not least, I was always going to save her for last because I think Hoyoverse is also going to be saving her for last. I want a good shot of her. Here we go. Just a little diction, that's all. Yeah, Nihilux is fun, isn't she? She is fun, and that was always going to be the main thing about her character. VA choice, perfect. They were saving Amber Lee Connors for a big character. You always knew they were saving Amber Lee Connors for a massive character. And yeah, I think this is a good choice here. Her personality, everything about her is fun. It's bright. It's easy to like her, and that's the main thing they needed to get right with this character is introduction. Because this character, I believe, is going to have massive story relevance and lore implications. I think I wouldn't be surprised if this is like the Cyrene of Planet Arcadia, like the last character released for the planet and like the most important character for the story. Because I just see her as like being this ethereal character in a way that's hard to describe. I don't think I'm doing her justice. I mean, just look at her design. Number one, fantastic design, right? Like the eyes just draw you in. The color of the hair, the purple, the outfit in general, the way she's presented is very distant. It's fun. Like it's fun and chaotic, right? But it's hard to get a read on her. And I love it. I love it. This character is super interesting to me. Definitely the character I think I have the most questions about. And I don't even know what those questions are. if that puts it well. JD, did we talk about Aha calling the Trailblazer Akavili? We didn't. But I think it's like just number one, we don't know if that was Aha calling the Trailblazer Akavili, right? We just know that they're called Ego. Could be anyone. But I just don't think it's that important, right? Like Trailblazer has been linked to Akavili plenty already. So we'll see what happens. Could be something interesting. But for now, I think it's just a new mystery that they introduced. We'll see what they end up developing with it. But yeah, Farina's VA. But Farina, not necessarily like she's voicing more like folklores than Farina. I think we said that live while we were streaming the story quest reaction. Is you don't hear a lot of Farina's voice in this, you hear folklore's voice in this. So Speaking of Amberly Connors, who else is excited for Ramiel in Zenless Zone Zero? Raise your hand. Who is excited for Ramiel in Zenless Zone Zero? Oh, me. Talking about me being Cyrene's biggest fan. Ramiel. Fuck yeah. Bella, you missed Ashevale set. Yeah, Ashevale was one of the first ones we talked about. Sorry, Bella. You can go back and listen to the VOD if you want. Yay, my fail queen. True. She is a bit of a klutz, which I love. JD don't play ZZZ. JD, my friend. I'm sorry. ZZZ is great. Well, season 1 was great. I haven't played season 2. I hear it's less great. But I love Zenless. We're gonna be starting Zenless soon. Hopefully soon. Did you go back and talk to her after the quest? Yes, I did. I completely forgot what she said, but yes, I do remember that Goldie told me to go talk to her. Love her hair. She's monotone on top while she acts sad, but then there's splashes of color elsewhere. Yep. Yeah, just the best way to describe Nihilux to me at this current moment in time is what I said earlier. I feel like I have 1,000 questions about Nihilux, and I don't know what those questions are. you know what I'm saying? Like, we all know there's a lot to this character. We just don't know even what. Like, we can't even get started. Like, with the other characters, like, I can kind of, like, maybe try to theorize and, like, think about what the mystery could be behind them. Not this character. I have no idea what she's about. She could be anywhere from a morning actor to a mass fool to a different type of emanator of elation. She could be, Path of Enigmata. Who knows what this character? For all I know, this is a Sapramad. You know what I'm saying? For all I know, a Sapramad was like, what if I became Amberly Connors for a story patch? So, yeah, Nihility, because like her name is literally Nihilux. It would be funny if Nihilux is a Nihility character. I hope so. Please make her the fucking dot sustain that I've always asked for, because we have Kafka, we have Heislands, we have Black Swan, and then we have like a fourth option that's just like pick Hua Hua or Don Hong Permanent Sword Tarai, and just that's the best you can do. Give me a dedicated dot sustain, please. I don't think she's going to be that, though. I think that's going to be Obsidian whenever Obsidian gets introduced. Julian, hello, my friend. Glad to see you. Thanks for hopping into the stream, my friend. Unfortunately, you are catching the tail end of it, Julian, but glad to see you. Hope all is well with you and yours. Happy weekend, my friend. Bella, she is a morning actor. She confirmed it in the post talk. Did she? I do. If she is, I do not remember that at all. At all. I gotta go back and rewatch the post, because I went back after the day we streamed. I was dead tired, dude. I was like, I think I was talking to her and eating In-N-Out at the same time. I was just so out of it. But yeah, I can't wait to learn more about her either. I think she's super interesting. Aside from her being super interesting and super mysterious, she's super fun, super likable. Amberly Connors does a fantastic job with her. I mean, Amberly Connors does a fantastic job with everyone, right? She's one of the rising stars of the English voice acting industry, if not one of the stars currently, for a reason. So, but yeah, super fun. The way she came in with the picture was super funny. I think that's where we're gonna end off with it. We'll end off with that visual right here, somewhere close to this. Yeah, there she is. Wait, hold on. I'm going the opposite. Hi, Nihilux. How's it going? Say cheese. Yeah, this is the last image that you'll get of the recap. But her eyes are so awesome, aren't they? Like I said it while we were reacting live. The last time I think I was so entranced by eyes was Evernight. I think Evernight had the same effect, right? Where you're like, whoa, look at the eyes. So, but yeah. Also, can I say I love the fact that she gave us souvenirs from the shop and put it on Pearl's card. Imagine being Pearl and just being like, what the fuck? What is this random expense charge on my card? Obviously Pearl has billions of credits. Like she probably doesn't worry about that whatsoever. I just thought it was so funny as how like she's probably broke to all hell, and she was like, "Yeah, yeah, totally. I can get you some souvenirs. Just put it on Madame Pearl's card, you know, put it on her tab. We'll be good." Yeah, when she falls from the chair evading the raccoon, she was so funny. Yeah, great character, great character. She's Goldie's favorite character at the moment from Planet Arcadia. If you guys remember Goldie, so but totally understandable. Julia Nilux is my new girl. I like to call her Four Eye. Good nickname. Nia Lux is the type of character that if you call her Four Eyes, she'll own it. She'll be like, hell yeah, I'm Four Eyes. That's me. Then she'll probably make another joke about it. Can't support her Furbo treatment, but I still love her. Indeed, she is a corporate slave driver, and we love her. We stand her for it. I mean, hey, if we're gonna support capitalism, it's a good thing that we're supporting capitalism with Nihilux. Don't support capitalism. Please don't support corporations. Okay, let's go ahead and call it here for today because I gotta get some food and watch some free run. Who else is watching free run now that it's over? I was waiting for it to end, and the last episode came out yesterday, and I am now marathoning it, and it is amazing. But JD, anyone else that is in Twitch chat, thank you so much for coming through. And Bella, Julian, thanks for coming through at the end. Julian, Bella, thanks for coming through as well. Seki, my friend. We had a couple of other people. Seeker came in earlier as well. Andreas, if you're still there, everyone who came in to chat with me today, always a pleasure, always a joy to have you guys in here on the discussion streams. These are probably my favorite streams to do. That are not obviously like big Star Rail story patches streams to do because it's just fun to chat, man. It's just fun to chat and be passionate about this game that we love so much. So, JD, funnily enough, her eyes remind me of the cocoon from Finality from Honkai Impact the Third. I'll go take a look at it because that could be relevant. But yeah, thank you guys so much for coming in. Next time I stream is up in the air. Obviously, we are done with 4.1. So I'm not sure if we're going to start Zenless Zone 0 again because there's only a few weeks left until 4.2. So who knows? We'll see. But I can guarantee you that you will see me for any trailer reactions from Star Rail. So whenever Silver Wolf 999 stuff starts to come out, we will obviously be doing that. So yeah, hopefully I will see you guys soon. If not, take care, guys. Stay safe. Get some rest. New week coming up soon. So I hope you guys have a great week. Thank you all for coming in. It was a pleasure as always, guys. Thank you so much. Take care. Peace, late.